The Empower Hour series was created for all of the women out there who have done everything they were supposed to do in life and are struggling to discover what's next. I see you. You know there's so much more out there, but you just don't know how to align with what's next for you. Well, you're not going to struggle anymore. It's time for you to create your new path and fall in love with your life over and over again. See that badass woman over there who has discovered what's next for her? Let's go ask her to share how she did it and become inspired. And if she can discover what's next, so can you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the EmpowHER Hour series. Tonight, we have an amazing guest, Amanda Mariani, and we're going to hear Amanda's story about how she is a current third grade teacher, but in addition to being a teacher, which is a tremendous, incredible career, especially now with all of everything going on with COVID, having to navigate that, how Amanda has created a secondary business and also stepped into a passion project, all the while how all of our world has been changing with COVID. So Amanda, welcome to our show. I'm so excited for you to share your story of inspiration with everybody out there. So the first question I have for you is, talk to us about why teaching? Why did you step into this career?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. What an honor. And yeah, teaching is intense. But you know what? It is such a rewarding profession. And when I was younger, I actually never knew what I wanted to do. So yeah, I just kind of went through high school and I did some drama in high school and I was like, oh, I like this. So then I was like, I'm going to continue. And then I studied theater and I did that for 3 years. And I'm also a singer, been singing since I was 9 years old. And so while I was in the theater program, I got asked to coach and guide one of my fellow actors in a song. So in essence, teach, right?
Yep.
And so I loved that. I loved kind of bringing the performing arts and the teaching aspect together. And so I said, oh, maybe I'm onto something here. So then fast forward 3 years into university, I applied for teaching and I got in. First shot, which I was so excited about. And they stuck us for our first field experience, like in a classroom. They put us in, I started in September. They put us in that experience in October. And
wow.
I remember, yeah, like right away. But you know what? I love that they did that because it really started to kind of like weed out the people who didn't like it.
Right.
You know, it's really not for everyone. It really isn't, you know? So I remember sitting in this classroom. It was grade 1 at the time. And I connected with one student in particular. And he was having some issues at home with his father.
Okay.
And at this particular school, they said, they asked that they had like a spinning bike and they asked the children to get their like pent up energy out on this bike. And so my cooperating teacher was like, can you just, grab him and take him out of the classroom so that he can get all his frustrations out. He still hasn't voiced to us what's going on in his life.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll just monitor. And he ended up pouring his guts out to me.
Wow.
I remember going home that night and being like, this is it. Like,
you knew from that moment.
I knew from that moment that I wanted to be in a classroom. I knew that I wanted to help mold young minds and create a safe space for children and support them, not only academically, but mentally and emotionally as well. And I never looked back from there.
Wow, that's so powerful because, and clearly that I'm a firm believer that student probably felt some kind of a connection, even if there was nothing spoken, that they were able to share that with you. And they had not shared that with anybody else in the school at that time.
Yeah, it was very powerful. And I remember it not being such a positive experience with the teacher in the classroom
Okay.
After 3 weeks, she didn't even know my name. And I was kind of like, okay, well, so that's what I don't want to be. But
right.
Just that experience of like having a child trust you on that level and then making that connection. And I was like, no, I want to do this with like hundreds of more children. And it's been a crazy journey. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. And interesting that even prior to going to university, you weren't really you kind of had a sense, but you weren't really sure. And this is what really spoke to you. And this experience in and of itself. Yep. This was affirming for you on so many levels, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's great. So then you graduated from university and you began teaching right away?
Right away, I was very lucky. So I live in Quebec. It's actually quite difficult to get a teaching post in the province of Quebec in Canada,
Okay.
because most of it is in French. I am
Oh,
Yeah, I am bilingual, but obviously English is my language of choice. And so I ended up stumbling, well, the universe, I don't stumble upon anything. The universe
no.
is wonderful.
Yes.
And I just remember someone being like, hey, there's a music post at this school. And I was like, that's literally, no pun intended, music to my ears. So I was
Yes.
like, yes, 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 let's do it. So I ended up having that post for 2 years
Wow.
and put on some rocking shows with those students. I taught 360 students. I taught the entire school.
Wow.
It was like the perfect introduction to my teaching career because it really, like I said earlier, it put together that performing arts aspect and the education aspect of it. And I just remember feeling so in my element for those 2 years. Like, just, I loved every minute of it. It was a great schedule. And students really took initiative. They were, for the audition process, for certain shows, they would, memorize their lines. Like, I had students in kindergarten who memorized their lines better than they did in the 6th grade. Like,
That's amazing.
so I started with that. Then I taught French. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I moved overseas to teach.
Yes. Yes.
And now I'm still teaching. So it's just rolling.
You are rolling. And I think going back a little bit, when you shared that in where you live, it's really difficult to obtain a teaching post, especially because they're looking more for bilingual people, right? And that necessarily wasn't your area, but that didn't discourage you from continuing to look and look and look. And when you were looking and your eyes were open and you were open to that opportunity, here comes this music position that is literally, like you said, music to your ears because of your background and your love and your passion for that area. So how awesome that nothing deterred you or threw you off track, even though it was quite a difficult time, or it was difficult to find a position.
Yeah, and like, it's funny, like, we have to keep ourselves open to these opportunities because so often we do get discouraged. And I'm not saying that I didn't have the days of like, oh, woe is me, I'm never gonna find a job. Like, like, I was young, I was in my 20s. So I think at the time I was like 20, oh, do I dare say 22 or 23 when I graduated university?
Sure.
And everyone was saying, okay, but there's this list and it's called the cattle call, and you have to sit in a room and watch all of the jobs just get
Wow.
taken from. And I was
Wow.
like, this sounds horrendous. Like, I just went through 4 years of university to sit in a room and watch all my dreams just like poof, like disappear.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with my family that summer, in the backyard and just being like, I'm gonna get something. Like I'm gonna get something. Like, I know it's gonna come. I just have to be patient.
Mhm.
And like that kind of like belief and faith mixed with obviously the fact that the teaching profession is constantly evolving and constantly changing.
Yes.
I was like, okay, so a little bit of logistics and a little bit of faith, and then music post. So
Yeah. Well, I want you to, I would love you to talk about that for a little while, because a lot of, I think women in particular, we get to a point where we have these dreams, we have these aspirations, we have these intentions, and we want to do things, but then using your example, something, a barrier or a blockade comes up, whether it's the BS that we tell ourselves, or whether it's logistically something that isn't getting us to that next level. I feel like that's when most people throw in the towel and say, well, forget it. Let me just take the path of least resistance here. And that's when that spark starts to dim down and die out in front of them. But there's that sense of regret. So I know you talked about the universe and you kind of knew, when you had those moments where you were like, I went to school for 4 years and now I have to sit in this room and my dreams are going to dissipate right in front of my eyes. What kept you going? What, when you talk about that belief and that you knew that there was something on the other side, but on the days where you felt defeated, what kept you in motion going forward?
Honestly, the fact that I knew that I had a very innate sense that that was my purpose. And, like almost a decade later now, I'm starting to understand and really work with my intuition.
Yes.
It wasn't, I feel like that was, like I say, it's that muscle that I love to flex, but I do it more so now than I ever did in the past. But I just felt like, I just felt like my gift and my ability to like reach students and teach. And I had been doing it for ages. Like I forgot to tell you, but like when I was 9 years old, I was doing ballet and my teacher picked me to teach the 5-year-olds. And
Oh my God.
so, and we were doing my favorite play, which was The Wizard of Oz. And
Oh yes.
my all-time favorite. My life is governed by The Wizard of Oz. And so I just remember saying like there's no way that this passion and this light is going to be like stifled. There's no way that, and whether it's not, I kept my options open, and I think that was a big thing too. So we do cut ourselves off at the knees, right?
Yep.
We tend to say, oh, well, so-and-so didn't get a job and so-and-so didn't get a job, so I'm not going to get a job.
Yep.
And I was like, well, no, because even if there's 30% at this school and 20% at that school, and I'll substitute it with tutoring on the side, I'm going to make it work because I know it's meant for me. So like, I never said no. I went to all the interviews. I talked to all the teachers. I took what I'm now understanding as inspired action towards.
Yes, great phrase.
Yeah, but that was a thing. And again, I wouldn't have been able to coin that phrase back then, of course, but I understood that it wasn't about just sitting down and saying, oh, well, I guess I'll just, wait until next year. No. It was about putting my best foot forward, making the connections and saying like, hello, teaching world. Hello, world, period. I'm Amanda and I love to do this. And it shows, right? The passion, it comes through. When I was meeting principals, they were like, oh crap, I don't have a position for you, but like, you can bet your bottom that a few years later, they were contacting me being like, I met you in 2012. We have a post. Do you want it? So
clearly making an impact on and people seeing and feeling that passion. And I love that even though out of university, you're like, I'm going to get it, full-time teaching career is going to be the ideal thing. That might not have been available, but you didn't cut yourself off and pull yourself out of the possibilities, right? You said, well, I can make it work if I piecemeal this together. I know I can do this if I get my foot in the door. I'm going to keep going on these interviews. So I love that you shared that, because I think that's what people, we almost feel like there's an all or nothing mentality, right? And we can't limit ourselves to that all or nothing mentality. We have to be open, because when we have that all or nothing mentality, our blinders go up and we don't see the opportunities in front of us. And just as a side note, my daughter loves theater. She's 9 years old, and her very first step foot on the stage was The Wizard of Oz. That was the very first show that she did when she was in first grade.
I love it. It has so many messages. Like full disclosure, as a teacher, I usually show my kids The Wizard of Oz, like in any which capacity I can. So when I was teaching music, I was like, oh, well, this is perfect music. Like Wizard of Oz is a musical, that fits.
Yes.
But then as I was teaching English or even French, like I was like, I need to fit this in somewhere, because like the messages of being young at heart and, believing in yourself, like that you don't ever have to go too far because you have everything within you. Like what a special and very poignant message for children.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, the famous line at the end, you had the power all along.
That's exactly. I have it written down. It's in my house. It'll follow me everywhere. It's so important.
Yeah.
which is what we all have. We have that power. We just need to believe it. We need to follow it. We need that spark to guide us. We need our intuition. Our intuition never lies. It's never wrong.
Oh,
Even if it's not the
never.
ideal circumstances, how can I adjust my circumstance to get
Yeah.
to that path that I want? So with all of this going on, your teaching career, with everything started, you ended up going overseas.
I did.
What was that? How did that come about? And what caused you to step into that space? And was there any hesitancy to do that? And what caused you to get over that, if there was?
So teaching overseas was actually something that I had wanted to do for a very long time. I actually wanted to do it right out of university. Unfortunately, I was in a relationship with someone who said, if you leave, I leave. Wah, wah, wah. So I was like, oh, we were together for 6 years. We owned a home together. That was really tough for me. And so, against my better judgment, I decided to stay. And I said, I'm still young. I always knew I was going to do it. I said, I'm still young. I was, like I said, 23 or 24. And I was like, I will do it eventually, but maybe now's not the time.
Mm-hmm.
That relationship obviously ended, because if I'm with someone who's going to say that, I don't want to be with you at all.
That's right. Yep.
And I remember working here and getting a job at a wonderful school. I was teaching French at the time. So I taught music for 2 years. In my third year, I taught French. And it's something that I wanted to do. And again, the universe conspires in our favor constantly. I ended up working in a school with 3, not like just 1, 3 people who had worked in the Middle East.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, actually, 2 of them, they were a couple, and they went from Indonesia to the Middle East. They taught oh my gosh, they taught everywhere. Japan. It was such an inspiration. And because it had always been in back of my mind, it's like I got plucked and placed into this space where I could sit with people and real talk through the trials and tribulations of working overseas.
Okay.
And so most of my lunch hours were devoted to talking to them about the process, understanding what I had to do in order to kind of cut ties with Canada to go and work overseas.
Okay.
Because there's logistics involved, of course.
Sure.
And I just remember, someone sent me a link once and said, there's this overseas recruitment fair in Kingston, Ontario. If you want, here's a list of all the schools that are going to be there. And I was like, oh, hot damn, I'm doing this. Like
that was your sign.
That was my sign. And so I registered, I paid, and my father, who's I like to call him my Buddha buddy, he came with me.
Yes.
And we went to Ontario, and I interviewed with just over 12 or 13 schools. And this is all over the world. And I just remember getting there and feeling this energy. Oh my goodness. Like this, everyone was just like so excited because they knew that they were going to pursue their passion in a new place with a new culture and new experiences. Something that Montreal, like I live in Montreal, I just felt a little bit claustrophobic at that time.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where, when you were talking about earlier, instead of just sitting down and accepting it and saying it, well, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. No, let's pivot.
Yep.
We have the power to pivot, right?
Yep.
And so we're never really stuck. And I think once we understand that we're not stuck and that we have choice, and it's just about whether or not we really want to work to pursue that, or how we want to forge forward. I think that once you understand how much choice you actually have and how much power you have over your life, you're just you feel very inspired.
Yes.
And that's how I felt when I walked into this fair. I remember being like, oh, wow, this is crazy. Like I'm getting interviewed by places in like Colombia, New Mexico, Macau, in China. And it ended up I found my fit with a school in Dubai.
Okay. That's how
it rolled. I remember sitting down with that principal, and her energy just attracted me. We talked and talked.
I got the interview, and I remember sitting there and I heard nothing. I interviewed on the Saturday. I hadn't heard anything for 24 hours. And on the Sunday, I interviewed with a school in Cambodia, which was my second runner up.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I got the notes, from this school saying, like, if you're still here, please come and meet us. Like, the job is yours,
Wow.
And I remember, like looking at my father and saying, like, this is crazy, because when I had 7 job offers on the table Saturday night.
Amazing. Amazing.
And it was just about like looking at them and figuring out, okay, which one fits with me the most. And it really came down to Italy, because I am Italian.
Uh-huh.
But then I was like, that might be too comfortable. Like, I want to throw myself so far outside of my comfort zone. I want change. I want new. I want, I don't want to go somewhere and speak the language already. And
Right.
like, I want to experience something different. And so, but it still came down to Italy, and it came down to Cambodia, Dubai, and Macau in China.
Okay.
But that principal in Dubai, I was like, no.
You were jiving with them. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And that was it. It was a big yes. I was supposed to go for a year, but they said to me, the contract is 3 years. And I was like, oh. I was like, my mom's going to kill me. But my dad just looked at me and was like, honey, carpe diem. Like,
look at
3
that.
years is going to pass like this.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
It's so quick. And imagine, you can sneeze and a year could go by.
That's right. Look what happened just this past year, for example, right?
Right? Like, and I was like, you're so right. And I was very scared, but I knew that if I was totally comfortable signing that, then I wasn't pushing myself far enough outside of my comfort zone.
Yep.
Wow. The fact that I had the butterflies, the fact that I was scared to call my mother to tell her that I was leaving for 3 years, that to me just meant, yes, you're headed in the right direction,
Wow.
Just keep pushing yourself, and I'm telling you, it was the best decision I've ever made my whole life.
That's awesome. And again, I mean, I feel like you're an amazing example of just that, because a lot of people, holy cow, 3 years in a country that I have no idea about, that I don't know anybody, that there's a language barrier there. I'm away from my family. I'm away of everything. That would send most people running back home. With their tail between their legs. With their tail between their legs. That would send most people would not take that opportunity because of the reasons that you took it. Most people would do the opposite. And I think that is an amazing lesson for so many, because when we're feeling the most comfortable is probably when, that needs to be looked at, I think, with a clearer lens, because if I'm not comfortable, because this is a new experience and I don't know what to expect, that's probably a reason why I should run towards it.
Absolutely. It's about having an open mind and an open heart. And for me, I was getting very complacent over here at home, and I was going through the motions. Okay, wake up, 5:30, go to the gym, go to work, come home, plan my lessons, sleep, and do it all again the next day.
Hamster wheel. Yeah.
And I'm not saying it doesn't work for some people are very comfortable with routine. Correct. Whereas for me and my personality and just what I wanted out of not only my professional life, but also my personal life, I was like, no, I need to run towards the thing that's scaring me right now. And on it, like I said, it is the best decision I've ever made, because then the micro moments and all the moments that I experienced in those, it ended up being 4 years, by the way. I extended by a year. I extended by a year. That's how much I hated it. So, all of the moments in between those 4 years, the travels, and I mean, the ups and downs, the tears, all of it, it all brought me to exactly where I am right now.
Right. Which we definitely want to get to, because this is also poignant right here. And, one of the things that I want to point out is, I work with a lot of women who talk about that decision that you had to make. Do I stay in the comfort, or do I step into the unknown that might feel really scary, and it might feel really difficult, and it might feel really challenging, but there's something that's guiding me towards it, and I'm not going to shut that thing up. I'm tuning in because I'm listening to that, and I'm listening to the opportunity. And a lot of women, when they get to my door, they're in that pivotal place because they have the spark, they have that, they can see what's on the other side of it, but they just don't know how to step into it. You knew that if it scared you, you needed to run towards it. That was that was like your directive. That was your signal. And that's what I help women to get to those places, because a lot of people don't know they're in that pivotal place. And a lot of times they're ready to go back to the other side of the fence. And I think that that's amazing that you did what most people would not do, because that's what you knew was guiding you towards it. You ran towards that unknown because that felt right to you.
I think some people might, I mean, I'm single, I'm not married, I don't have kids. I know that in some cases it might be it was easier for you because you had no attachments. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change what's going on in here.
Right. That's right.
Right. And
That's
so right. I would argue like the toughest part is in that battle with yourself.
That's right.
It's not easy. Like it doesn't go without its difficulty. Like, I mean, in Dubai, my first year, I was hospitalized. Like I was not okay.
Oh my God.
It was like a rough process, a lot of anxiety, and I didn't know how to process the homesickness, and I didn't know how to, it's not easy. So like, I understand that the attachments, no, I didn't have all of that here, but at the same time, like everything that inner turmoil it's just as powerful, right?
Right.
And so like that conversation, that dialogue, and that narrative with yourself is just like having an external, physical attachment, because it's
absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's big.
and I appreciate you sharing that personal piece, because it's, I think you're right that people listening to this even might say, well, yeah, of course she was able to do that because fill in the blanks, X, Y, and Z. But it was this in here, that it was your own personal reasons why that drove you to do that, despite the circumstances. Circumstances are circumstances, and it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. There was a lot of obstacles that you had to endure in that process, but you kept going. You could have at any point pulled the plug and said, I'm out of here, I'm going home, but you didn't do that despite all of those difficulties that you were enduring, which is quite incredible. So and I love how you started to segue and say, if it weren't for all of these decisions that I made, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And that piece of your story, where you are right now, share that with us, because again, I think circumstantially you started to step into a different path, in addition to what you were doing with teaching, but then there was another obstacle that came up. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, when I came home, I feel like I wanted to conquer the world.
What a great feeling.
It was a very powerful feeling. When I was away in my last year, I ended up getting a job offer to be the director of a preschool in the Middle East, in Dubai. Unfortunately, the work environment wasn't favorable to me. And so I had to leave that environment. I had to leave that job just because of the toxicity, which is fine, because it taught me a lot. And being in a position of leadership, I started to see like, wow, okay, I like this.
You got the taste of the leadership, and yes.
But that's the thing. Like I was saying, like I felt like I was hitting a ceiling here in Montreal. All of a sudden, you go to Dubai, and opportunities are literally rolling in, because it's still a pretty new country, right? Like, it's 40 something. I guess at this point, maybe 48 years old. I could be wrong, but we celebrate their national day every year, and you're 40 something years. Like that's like, my parents are older than that, but
Yeah.
they're still building. And so when they're saying, hey, they look at you and they're like, I like this in you. They're going to offer you something like just off the bat. Like, you don't even have to have too many credentials or too much experience, because they're just going on who you are and what your energy is, which I think is incredible, because that doesn't always happen over here because it's saturated.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity at the school I was working at to become like a grade level coordinator. And I loved that role. It was really about guiding the team that I was working with.
Okay.
And, if they were overwhelmed, like, let me create a template for you, or a spreadsheet where you could just input all your stuff, and then I'll send it to, like admin, and don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Like, I am a nurturer. I love taking care of people. And that role also in that position of leadership, and then directing that preschool, I was like, no, I feel like now I'm starting to understand that my purpose is even greater. Like, yes, I want to teach. Yes, I want to inspire, guide, support, motivate, but I also want to do that with adults. Like, I want to still have a connection to adults.
Yes.
And so when I got home, I always knew that I wanted to put together my passion for performing arts and education.
Yes.
And of course, in divine timing, my uncle is an entrepreneur, very successful entrepreneur, and sent me the link to this performing arts franchise.
Awesome.
And I remember being like, because just a few weeks before that, I was telling my dad, like, Dad, I don't know how to start a business. Like, I don't know, from the ground up. I'm gonna need a school, and my name is not out there. I've been gone for 4 years. Like, who am I?
Right.
And I remember getting this email and saying, like, franchise with us, and I was like, oh, a franchise. That means that the bones are already there.
Yes. And look at what your problem was.
True.
Your problem was, I don't know how to do this. Who am I? And now here's the universe sending me this franchise opportunity.
Crazy. It's crazy, and I looked at, the whole document. I reached out to them for more information. And then that was the start of a beautiful relationship. It ended up aligning so much with what I wanted. It's acting, singing, and dancing. It starts at, 4 years old. It goes all the way up to 16. And they run all over the world. They're based in the UK, but they have franchises in Europe, the States, Canada, Australia. I was like, oh, I love this,
Yes.
So it's like this summer that I moved home, I made the connection. One of the managers from the UK flew to Montreal to meet myself and my father. And, we were talking about, what is this going to look like for me? What is it going to look like if this is where I want to go? And I just remember having that gut feeling. And again, we can't ignore that. That gut. We can't ignore. I've done it in the past and it really didn't work out for me.
No, because it keeps knocking. It's like, hello. It's like looking in your window. It keeps knocking at your door. Yep.
Why are you ignoring me? Like, I'm literally giving you everything you need right now.
Yep.
So I remember feeling very connected to the program. I felt connected to the manager. I felt connected to, everything that they offer and the premise of, how they built up this franchise. And I kind of started to manifest what area I'd want in Montreal also, because there's some areas I feel like it would really thrive, in some territories that maybe it wouldn't. And I got it.
Amazing.
I got it. It was, like, I remember saying to my dad, because I obviously saved money. I knew this is something I wanted to do. So when I was in the Middle East, I saved money so that I could purchase this business, whatever shape or form it was going to take. I knew that I wanted to invest in something.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so I purchased the business, signed on the dotted line, was super excited, but I'll give you the date of this and then you'll tell me how that makes you feel. March 5th, 2020.
That's when you signed.
Yes. And then when did the world shut down?
I feel like around like the 16th of March-ish, at least in the States. That's what
That's true. I was out of work on March 13th.
Wow.
And everything shut down. And I remember holding this contract in my hands and being like, I just purchased a business. and I have no idea what is going to happen now. Like,
Yeah.
not a clue. I felt like I was riding such a strong wave. I felt like I was ready. I felt like my momentum was so intense. And then it just like, it's just, I don't know.
It just, and there was nothing you could do
disappeared.
about it. That's what was completely not within your control. You couldn't control what happened to the world.
No. And that is something that, so to this day, so in Canada, I'm sure people kind of follow what's happening. Like, we're still not out of this, we're
Right.
not out. And I have not been able to launch it. I haven't been able to secure my venue. I haven't been able to, but I remember at the very beginning of the pandemic, not teaching because our schools obviously shut down completely as well. And being out money and just, I remember asking, like, okay, is this a sign, universe? Like, is it because you don't want me? Is this not where I'm supposed to be going? Like, you can't help but think, but you're like, but it's also a global pandemic.
Right. It's not just me. It's a lot of things happening right now. Yep. So that's the rational coming in.
That's the rational. There you go. And then I kind of had to say, and it took me months to go through the process of almost like mourning, like that, the loss of the excitement, the loss of the momentum. It all really dissipated. And for me, it was very tough to kind of reconcile, like, that I wasn't able, I had a hard time navigating that. And I it took me months.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm living on my own. And so, like, we're shut down. I'm not seeing my family and I have nothing but time. And I said, okay, well, let me try and figure this out then, let me try and figure out, like, what is it that I can plan and prepare so that when I'm able to open, I can thrive.
Right. So there's a choice right there. I could choose to hide under my covers and woe is me. And did I make this a good decision? And oh my gosh, what did I do? I invested all this time and effort and finances. And now this is happening. I can't do this. Who knows? You had a choice. You said, instead of being in that space, which you're allowed to be in that space when something like that happens, but pulling yourself out of that space and saying, how can I plan? Because this is not a forever thing. And I'm going to be ready when I'm able to. So yes.
Yeah. So that, and it was tough. Like, I'm like you said, we have to give ourselves permission to feel the feels, right? It's not, it's never going to be this like linear process where everything's just going our way. Like, I think that these things that are thrown at us, they really make us like, they give us the opportunity to process things that we may not have otherwise kind of pegged as important, or like started to, really shine a light on. And I just remember saying, I think this is a blessing in disguise, because yes, I put down the initial payment, but I didn't rent a space. I don't have to pay educators right now. Maybe this is my time to build the foundation.
Yes. Okay.
So I started thinking at that. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to hire a business coach.
Awesome. Now, so in a global pandemic where you've put a down payment on a business and you weren't working, you were in a position where financially, oh my gosh, but you had the wherewithal to be able to hire a business coach. I think that's amazing.
Thank you. And it wasn't like, listen, like, again, for a lot of people who are thinking like, well, where did she get the finances to do that? I did my research, and in Montreal, there was like anyways, there's a service for young entrepreneurs who they're out of downtown Montreal, and you pay one flat fee for the whole year, which is extremely affordable. And then you get to kind of sit with different business coaches and see who you align with.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome.
So I was like, okay, well, I definitely can't afford $100, $150 a session right now. Like, I can't, like, that's not something I could do. But I spent the time doing the research, going online, and then I attended several free workshops that they were hosting. And I remember sitting there with this one coach, and I was like, I like him. I will talk to him. And he's still my coach to this day.
Awesome. So you had to go through a process. You
Yeah.
you had to go through your time for time, and you had to go to these different workshops, and you aligned with somebody that you felt good about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like a no BS kind of guy, like very
Perfect.
much like, so when I was like, oh my God, but I can't, and he would say, Amanda, and it's like he was just able to confirm what I just said. Maybe this is for me, this time for me is right now is to lay the foundation, like get the connections, network, like even if it's virtually, it doesn't matter, like let's go do the free workshops if you can't afford to, pay. Align yourself with people who really want to learn about, what you're doing and who are interested in what you're doing. And that's what I did. I attended a ton of workshops, and I spoke with him probably once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
I held regular meetings with my managers out in the UK, and I just started contacting different people, different venues. I started asking questions, to contacts that I had in my immediate circle. I used the time to create resources.
Great.
Which
That's
is important because when you launch a business, you're in it.
Yep. And you can't build the foundation the way that you were able to. Thank you, universe, for this global pandemic that allowed me to build this foundation so that when I'm able to open, I got it. I don't have to scramble.
That's it. And we put the website up, and we got everything, and my Instagram was up, and everything was up, and that was great. And I was finally in like April of last year was able to kind of like tell the world, hey, I purchased a business. This is what I'm doing. Whenever I can open, I'll open, and I'll let you know, but everything is there. And so like at least once or twice a month now, I still get inquiries through my website. And, like I'm curating a list of people who are interested in my business, which is great because, like I didn't have to like market it and then have the pressure of no one signing up. At least now there's an interest that's building.
Yeah. And when you're able to open up, boom, now I can send all these people this information about when I'm opening.
Yeah. And then, Clubhouse was also a blessing because it allowed me to connect with people that I didn't even know in my city who were like, oh, you're doing this thing. And yes. And, like I've had people say, oh, my so-and-so is in performing arts. Like if you need teachers, let me know. And I recently had someone who say, oh, I work at a college in your territory. Maybe we could talk about you renting your venue from me.
Wow. See? Look at all again, I think when you don't have those blinders on and you're open to receive, right? That's when things come to you. And it's again, going back to the choice. I could choose to sit in the space of this sucks and wallow, and time and its place for that. But I can choose to get unstuck from that and open myself up to these possibilities and these opportunities and take advantage of these new apps like Clubhouse. And I don't know what that is, but let me get on there and look at all the connections I'm making now. You and I wouldn't have met had that not been the case, had we not been on that app.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you also, so all of this going on during the pandemic also enabled you to step into another creative space.
Yes. I started a podcast.
Yeah. And what is the name of your podcast?
My podcast is called Holistically You. And there's a little play on words. Obviously, the educator in me was like, I want to play on words in my title. So whole, as in like being a whole human, is in parentheses, holistically you. And it has been so much fun. Obviously, again, we can't really do very much right now. And so I started out with a blog, which I started when I was in Dubai, and it was more as if a means to connect with the people here at home. And so everyone was kind of like, we want to know what are you doing travel wise? And I started writing travel blogs, but then I realized that my essence didn't come through and like, hey, go here, do this. It came through and I did this, and this is what I learned from it.
Love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. Teachable
Yeah,
moments. That's the teacher in you.
teachable moments. Oh, like that was huge. And I remember like going to India and doing a yoga retreat for the first time, and I was so nervous to get on that flight to go to Goa, this unknown place. I remember it was a 2-hour rickety car ride from the airport to the yoga retreat, and I was like, this is the end of me. That's it. I'm out.
This is
Thank
where
you.
it's
This is the end of my life. But I remember sitting, we were meditating on top of the rocks, and
oh my
I
God.
opened my eyes and I didn't realize that I was crying. Because
Wow.
the lesson I learned in that particular, not just those 4 days, but like leading up to that, was massive. And it was just like, let go and let the universe take care of you. Like, let everything happen in its own timing and trust the timing of your
Yes.
life.
100%.
Because so often, and I've done this for years, is I try to control every outcome. But I got no business controlling things. I just, it's my job to let go and get out of the driver's seat and kind of just enjoy the journey. And so, someone said to me once, I love your blog. Every time I read it, it's like I hear you, because I kind of write the same way that I speak. And I was like, really, you should start a podcast. And I was like, nah.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone else, you should start a podcast. And like at the third person, I was like, that's it, I'm starting a podcast.
That's the validation. There you go. That was the knocking on the window and looking in, and
That's
all
it.
of a sudden it got your attention.
Yeah. And like it's for me as much as it is for other people. And I remember my father saying to me, back at that career fair in Ontario, where he said to me, Amanda, I just feel like you're going to be a teacher of teachers. Like whether it's you standing in front of people doing a workshop, or whether it's you also just connecting with adults and people who want to also like flow and grow and learn, and then share their lessons and growth with others. Like he's like, I just feel like that's where you're headed. And I always kept those words in my head. Oh, teacher of teachers. But that's not it. There's no constraint there. It's very open, and it's very, there's so many different avenues that you can take,
Yep.
And so it's about just saying yes. And so my podcast has now also been a way for me to share these experiences with people, with the world. And I've had people message me and be like, I had no idea that you went through that. And I'm like,
I did. Right.
I did. And we don't know if we're not open. We don't know if we're not willing to receive.
Right.
And so like, it's been a hell of a journey, but I'm learning not only through the process of sharing, I'm just listening to people. I'm listening to the people that I'm interviewing. I'm a student.
Yes.
I'm a student, and we all are. We are students of life. We just have to be open to receiving the messages and understanding that it's more in the letting go than the trying to hold on. Because we squeeze too hard, whatever's in our hand, it shatters, right?
Yes.
And so like, just trust the timing.
Yep. Trust the timing, trust that process. Right. And I think that what you said a while ago when we were talking, and you said, some people might look at me and say, well, of course she could do that because she doesn't have X, Y, and Z. But that's the barriers. That's the blockades that we come up against, right? We make up reasons in our head why they can and I can't, why they're able to and I'm not able to. And that's the blocker. That's not being open. That's not, you're allowing yourself to receive. That's putting that wall up to prevent anything from coming your way. And that, I think, it's those barriers, or that we've talked about, like the universe, like knocking on your window and looking in, and the validations that you're receiving. You should do a podcast. You should, no. But then after the validations kept coming in, there's a reason why people are saying this to me. Yes, I need to do this. I had a similar story before I started my coaching business. I'm a psychotherapist. Like I know how to that's my trade. I'm a mental health therapist, right? So I know how to help people navigate through things. But when people kept coming to me and saying, you should do this, you're helping people, help people in a different way, I blew it off too. And then when I started receiving the validations, I couldn't make up excuses about the validations anymore, because they became so clear to me. And I had no idea how to do this. Right. And you had no idea what to do, but you just listen to it and you just figure it out. Or you hire somebody to help you, or you just jump into the scary stuff, because that's where I'm going to learn the most. You trust that instinct, even though sometimes it wants to tell you to go in the opposite direction.
100%. I call myself a 2 feet in kid. So that's,
Me too.
Yeah. Like what we should be like, oh, we're just really going to dip our toes in the water and test it out. How many years are you just going to test the water? Like, go for it.
Yep.
Just go for it.
Yep. Go for it. That's right.
And we have, like you said, like you have you're a licensed psychotherapist. You have all the tools and everything that you need. You have the ground there to hold you up should anything really go wrong, like you could always have something to fall back on. And we forget that we are so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
100%. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's and again, I love your story. Not only it's all around inspirational, but it's also real. And it wasn't, again, a unicorn and rainbow flawless, this is just what happened, da 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 da. No, there were a lot of obstacles. There were a lot of things that were kind of could have pointed you in an opposite direction if that was the choice you decided to make. There were a lot of barriers coming up against whatever you did, but you knew that those barriers were just barriers, and you were able to get over them. You knew that they weren't going to stop you from getting to where you needed to go, which is all inspiring.
That feeling, it's the gut. You can't ignore the gut. You can't ignore the intuition. It's too strong. And when you have a good tribe also, and you align yourself with people who are just constantly supporting you and like like cheerleading on the sidelines. Like I call my brother like my biggest cheerleader, starting back from high school. He would I sang one song and he'd stand up and he goes, "That's my sister," You have, even if maybe you don't have a sibling or, maybe even your parents are absent, but there's how many people in the world that you can align yourself with who want to be on that path with you. And if they're not going in that direction, but they want to be there, like running beside you, being like, "You're doing great."
Right. Right. Yep.
And I think that adds to it too, is making sure that, because during those downs, you want to have that support system.
That's right. Always having those cheerleaders, and then recognizing you're going to have people along the way too, who you share these exciting things with, and crickets are going to chirp. And it's not because they don't love you and care about you. They just might not understand your journey. And it's not up to them to understand it all the time. It's up to you not to be deterred from that.
Absolutely.
Right. So Amanda, I want you to share, if people are listening to this and they're like, holy cow, like I want to check out her podcast, or I want to be on her podcast, or I want to know when this theater program is going to open up, or I just want to follow her on social media because she is amazing and inspiring. How are people getting in touch with you? All of the links are going to be dropped below, but I always like people to verbally say that as well.
Absolutely. So everyone can add me on my personal page, because I have a link tree in there to basically everything that I'm doing.
Great.
So that is _Lisa_Mar, MAR. So that is my my personal page on Instagram. And there's the link in there also to my podcast Instagram, which is holistically_you_podcast. And so actually my business is called Stagecoach Performing Arts. I didn't mention the name before.
Yes.
And if you Google Stagecoach Performing Arts, my name, Amanda Mariani, I'll pop up as principal. I have also an Instagram page and a Facebook page for that. It's Stagecoach Westmount NDG in Montreal. And I'm very active on social media. My DMs are open. I'm always happy to connect and just speak with people. So I'm just, I'm so happy and humbled that you had me on. You know, I'm so excited, and I'm just, I want to connect with women, and we need to empower, we need to empower each other. You know,
Yes.
like that's the whole name of this series. And,
Yes.
and kudos to you, Suzanne, for doing it, because honestly, I think that this conversation is so important, and we have to keep having it. We have to.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for saying that and validating this show for sure.
Oh, yes.
And for being here and spending your time and energy here with us and our viewers so that they can hear your story of inspiration for sure. And I can't wait to be on your podcast too.
Yes, I'm so excited. And, you know, we'll put that up in all the links too. That'll be, you know, we're interviewing in a couple of weeks, so that'll be really fun. And that's really great, because now we're able to also reach, you know, a whole other sector of people. And, you know, like I said, keep having these conversations, because this is the tribe right here. This is that tribe that we were talking about.
Yeah,
you know?
Empowering each other, lifting each other up, and this is all encompassing for this. But so thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. Appreciate you. And certainly, if anybody wants to get in touch with Amanda, definitely reach out to her. She is amazing. She's inspiring. She's an awesome cheerleader herself, and I'm sure she would love to connect with you. And as always, if you heard anything that Amanda said and you're in that position yourself, and you're like, I know I want to do something, but I just have that blocker and I don't know how to get past it the way Amanda did, definitely schedule a free Discover call with me so that we can figure out what's next for you. That link is below as well. And as we close, as I always say, just because you've done everything in life that you were supposed to do does not mean that you've done everything that you're meant to do. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, tuning in. And Amanda, thank you again. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Bye.